I'm no stranger to scary situations. I deal with them all the time. Now, if you just stick with me, Morty, we're gonna be... Holy crap, Morty, run! Morty, run! I've never seen that thing before in my life, Morty! I don't know what the hell it is!
Oh, let's go, 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 go!
Welcome to Cordkillers. Our mission is to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you, my friends, have the information you need to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. The most important mission in the universe. I'm Tom Merritt.
Yeah, man, and I'm just going to assume that what you really wanted to watch was a recreation of Rick and Morty scenes using the Fallout engine and created by a user Up Is Not Jump on YouTube, in which case, you're welcome. I'm Brian Brushwood.
There's more where that came from, too, on something called the internet, which I was first introduced to by our guest today, Iyaz Akhtar.
That's true. I did introduce Tom to the internet. It went totally backwards. It was this time travel thing. We'll talk about it when you're older.
Younger. Older, younger.
Yeah.
No, Iyaz, of course, from CNET.com, and it's very nice to give us updates that we play on the show from time to time, letting you know what things are coming to and leaving the various streaming services, which you do in full over there at CNET.com. It's awesome.
Yeah, we do that. Thanks a lot. It's been a lot of fun there. And I'm also going to be promoting a lot of individual stuff, but we'll talk about that later. That's for shilling later.
It's really weird because it's like in so many ways I feel like you're a regular contributor, like you're on here all the time, but then I realize, wait, it's been like 6 months since we've had Iyaz. It's only because he sends us the recorded heads up about what's coming down the pipeline that we get excited about.
Yeah, it's that kind of like you're fond of me because you don't have to deal with me.
I'd like to say it as we get the best of you, just the content,
one-way conversation.
Yes, exactly.
All right, everybody, shut up. It's time for the primary target. So, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos was speaking at the Code conference last week. Said lots of stuff. We're going to talk about a couple of them. Let's start with this one. He said, quote, "We don't compete with Netflix. I think people are going to subscribe to both. From a business point of view for us, we get to monetize that content in an unusual way. When we win a Golden Globe, it helps us sell more shoes in a very direct way." That's what he said.
Oh, wait, he did. He actually said in a very
direct way.
And that is...
Like, literally, people buy more shoes when they see us win a Golden Globe. I don't know.
Okay. Geez. All right, help me out with this, because I have thoughts, Tom, but they conflict with each other. Because on the one hand...
Iyaz and I are here to help you.
Okay, on the one hand, I want to say he's 100% right, because name anyone who has Amazon Prime who doesn't have Netflix, or name anyone who has Netflix who doesn't have Amazon Prime.
Right. I'm going to say... Anybody who chooses it as an either or. It's like I get one for shipping and I just happen to get the free video.
Correct, right? So in that regard, he's 100% right. But on the flip side, if you're going to take the Coke versus Pepsi model, people are only going to have one favorite soda that they use. And we've talked about this. I don't know, maybe he is right, because like I have elected to buy more content in the Amazon ecosystem than in the Apple ecosystem, because I spend more time in the Amazon ecosystem. So in that regard, the Coke versus Pepsi is the Amazon versus Apple. But I don't know what to think. Where are you at on this?
Okay, so I'm confused by Bezos' opinion that they're not competing with Netflix, especially when they have the monthly version of Prime Video available right now. So that seems like it's not exactly fully true. Maybe he didn't even realize they were doing that. I'll just pretend Jeff Bezos forgot that they have their own standalone video service that's available now. The shoe comment, though, I totally believe. Because there are so many times where I'm just on Amazon, either watching a video or just doing anything. And it's like, why not get yourself a treat? Why not get something off your wish list? And then I wind up buying something that I didn't plan to. So they will sell me shoes. I just don't know when.
Yeah. It's that old saw. They'll sell you shoes. You just never know when. You may be right about that. I don't think it's very direct. I think that's overstating it. But I get the premise, which is people watch Amazon stuff. They're more likely to go to Amazon.com for whatever reason, and then we can upsell them shoes. I do think, Brian, that when he says we don't compete with Netflix, it's another one. It's the same kind of statement. It's disingenuous to say they don't compete. Of course they compete with Netflix. If somebody only has enough money for Amazon Prime, even with the shipping and Netflix, they're likely to cancel Netflix. And that's because Amazon has structured a product that says, hey, this is all of these wonderful things. But as Iyaz points out, you can decide to like drop Amazon Prime shipping off and just get the video. So of course they're competing. But I think he's right in saying, like, yeah, NBC, CBS, and ABC in the United States are competing, but you don't have to pick one. It's not like you have people go, I only watch NBC. If a great show comes along on CBS, well, forget it. I won't watch them. There's room for people to have multiple services.
Here's the question. And I think just now when you phrased it that way, I had this epiphany. I think the question is, when he says we're not competing, the question is, for what? Yes, you are not competing for my dollars. Me and all my friends, we buy Netflix and we buy you. You are not competing for dollars. That is 100% accurate. But you're going to look me in the eye and say you're not competing for the Golden Globe? You're going to look me in the eye and say you're not competing for Emmys? You're going to look me in the eye and say you're not competing to be the most critically beloved of all content online networks? That I do not believe at all. And in that regard, and weirdly, this is one of those things that you read, and this is exactly what I want to see from all of my content companies. I want to see them not worried about ways to box us into places, but instead worried about ways to please us even better than the other guy pleases us.
Yeah, I mean, they are certainly competing to get Mozart in the Jungle, to get Narcos. You know, like, these companies don't just come up with these ideas themselves and then go find someone and tell them to make it. Soloway came to Amazon and pitched them. And they're like, great, yeah, we'd love transparent. You know, Netflix would have loved to have transparent too, also. So in the early days, maybe it was slim enough pickings that they didn't tread on each other's feet much. But I bet you these days it's common for somebody to take a meeting with Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu and decide which one to go with.
Here's the other thing I would suggest is...
For their show, I mean.
If and again, I don't have the full interview, so I don't know the entire context, but if his point was that we don't compete with Netflix, then yes, 100%. But you're going to tell me you don't compete with Vudu, Crackle, CISO... all of these lower tier things, like, yeah, congratulations, you made it to the top 3. You, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Netflix are the new NBC, CBS, and ABC. Congratulations. But you're telling me you're not threatened by Fox? Yeah, you're definitely competing with Fox and with the WB, the CW, all that crap coming up.
Well, and they're definitely competing with Google and Apple, too, because another thing that Jeff Bezos said at the Code Conference was when he was asked, why did you guys stop selling Chromecast and Apple TV? He said, look, when we sell those devices, we want our player, our Prime Video player, to be on the device. And we want it to be on the device with acceptable business terms. You can always get the player on the device. The question is, can you get it on there with acceptable business terms? And of course, Nilay Patel, God bless him, said, well, wait a minute. When you say acceptable business terms, are you talking about the fact, for instance, that Apple takes a 30% cut of any transactions that happen in the Apple store and don't let you point off of their store to do transactions, to which Bezos backpedaled and said, private business discussions should stay private.
Okay, let me ask you, Iyaz. So as far as this issue goes from a legal perspective, the only way legally, whether or not they're doing something right or wrong, from the government's perspective, is if they have a majority of the market and they're using that unfairly to position themselves to dictate terms that keep them in power or whatever. But separate from that, which I think I'm assuming is not the case. Forgive me. I cannot see this through any lens except for the way we do stuff on scamstuff.com, right? We have a very small online magic store with a bunch of, cool spy gear or whatever. Like, on the one hand, as a store owner, I think, well, there's no way. Like, yeah, no, if you're gonna not offer my product, or it's my store, it's my terms, or whatever. So in that regard, I'm like, yeah, dude, of course, you should not have to provide a product that doesn't offer favorable business. What did he say? Favorable business.
Acceptable business terms.
There you go. Yes. And in that regard, I totally agree. But also on the flip side, as a consumer, I'm like, dude, just sell the damn thing. And so I'm highly conflicted, and I would love to know your take.
Yes, on the legal side, I mean, obviously Amazon does not have the majority of basically sales in the United States. So they're allowed to do this. I think it's kind of a jerk move in general, I will say that, because what is stopping Amazon really from making an app for Apple TV right now anyway? Sure, you don't have to be able to buy these actual videos through the app, but aren't we used to that with the Amazon app that's on iOS right now?
I'll tell you what the problem is, Iyaz. Acceptable business terms.
But he just needs to accept them. That's the problem here. The business terms are this. You want to be on Apple's box, you play by their rules. That's pretty simple. There's a lot of other services out there. Chromecast is a weird one because I'm not sure if you can actually send, I don't know if you can cast your stuff over. Again, Amazon could build that into their app if they wanted to. So it's kind of strange to me to think that the Amazon video team, for some reason, is like, well, we can't possibly make an app or we can't make it cast. The Fire TV Stick is a decent device. The Roku device is just, those things are killer at this point. So it seems like Amazon, which normally is on every single platform, especially with the Kindle, why on earth they're stopping their video service from being on other devices? Seems like it's counterintuitive.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this is not a question of whether or not they have the right to do this. The question is whether or not it's a smart thing to do from a PR perspective, whether or not this makes them look like a bunch of, pouty jerks.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, they have enough Apple products and they have enough Google products, but they have enough products out there where people aren't really going to be stuck. Like if you're like, oh, I want a streaming box, they have an option for you. So I think it's basically bad PR for a while because they used to have these devices. That's the other thing. They used to sell these and then they just put them away. And I don't want to see a suggestion that's from Amazon because they want to sell me their actual device. Because if their device is the best, I will go get it. But it has to be the best.
Well, and honestly, I don't care what he says about acceptable business terms. That is a half-truth. Yes, Amazon is playing hardball. They would like to get Apple to give them a better deal, but they also sell the Fire TV Stick and the Fire TV. So it's no skin off their nose if suddenly there are two fewer pieces of competing hardware in the Amazon store. And when someone searches Apple TV, the Fire TV comes up in the search results and they're like, oh, I hadn't seen that. And then they buy that instead. I mean, this all helps Amazon and it's leverage because they do sell a lot of things to say, hey, Apple TV, you're losing out on some sales, which they are. And Apple says, we don't care. We sell plenty of Apple TVs without you. And we also don't care about maintaining some special business relationship with anybody. It's 30%. It's the same rule for everyone. And that's the way I phrased it earlier when we were talking is Amazon saying, we'll take our ball and go home. And Apple's like, we don't care if you have a ball or not. These are the rules.
Oh, I'm giving you the stage, Iyaz, because you looked like you had something to say.
I'm pondering about Amazon's plans.
Well, let me chime in real quick because what Tom just did was something that I hadn't considered. He saw things from Apple's point of view, which is like, to me, the whole question of this story is whether or not, like, is Amazon being a jerk or not? And I'm like, well, I mean, maybe they're being, willfully ignorant of how this looks to outside parties, but I don't know that they're doing anything outside of their rights. I actually, after hearing Tom, think that this is a really responsible move on Apple's part to not budge. I think that's their whole thing. It's like, hey man, we have one set of rules. We're going to apply that no matter who you are. And if that means that we're going to lose a bunch of sales on your gigantic platform, that's fine. I guess we'll deal with that.
Yeah, it's also making me think about Amazon's plans for its video players or video apps in general. Because if I think about it, they came up with that X-ray feature where you can actually get a lot more information about the movie you're watching. I'm kind of curious if they're figuring out a way to sell you items through their video playback. So, if you like something you're watching on TV, maybe Amazon's cracking that. And there's no way on earth they want to be able to have that kind of app on Apple TV where they would lose a significant portion of revenue. So maybe that's what they're looking at. Because the Amazon app for Roku is pretty bad considering there's the amazing one for Fire TV.
Well, here's the craziest part is I think that there is in most consumers' minds, and I'd be interested, everybody write us at cordkillers@gmail.com and tell me if I'm wrong, which I probably am. But I think in most consumers' minds, there's a place for first place, second place, and the rest. And I think Amazon smells the fact that there might be Coke, Pepsi, and the rest. And if they can lock in their position as Pepsi, then yeah, they should not play ball and secure that, and maybe make, set themselves up as the place where it's like, watch Orange is the New Black and get a special deal on the shoes that you see featured in the show. I don't know.
Apple's revenue share terms, though, you may think they're admirable, and that's fine, and you may think they're greedy, and that's fine, but what they really are is ridiculously inflexible. It is understandable that they want to keep the same rules for everybody. It is insane to think that any large enterprise that makes money off subscriptions, whether it's Amazon or the Financial Times or anybody, would give up 30% of that on an ongoing basis. That's why when you see a lot of these subscription companies bring their app to Apple, they add 30% to the subscription price, because they're like, yeah, we're not going to give that up. If people are willing to pay extra for it on the Apple platform, that's fine. Amazon's saying, we don't want to add 30%. We want one price for everybody, and we want a reasonable term where Apple isn't getting 30% of our revenue every month for no reason. Like, it's fine to take 30% of a one-time purchase, but 30% of ongoing subscription prices for a scale like Amazon or any large enterprise is pretty crazy.
I mean, it sounds like you're in favor of, going forward as long as all parties can agree to acceptable business practices.
Yeah, I would just like to see some acceptable business practices. However, I think private business discussions should stay private. So I don't want to know what they are. No, I think these are two companies who aren't thinking of the consumer. They're thinking of themselves, and both their positions make sense to them. And that's why we have this impasse.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the end of the discussion now.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see Apple changing their mind ever.
No.
And so I maybe I see Amazon figuring out a way, or maybe they crack and decide, all right, well, fine, we'll do the same thing we do with the Kindle on iOS. We'll put a limited video player up there, maybe. But I feel like Bezos is trying to keep his back stiff here. I think Amazon has a chance of blinking before Apple, though.
Yeah.
If someone's going to blink.
Actually, yeah, no. I agree. And by the way, that's not really saying much insofar as, like, Apple is made of diamond, and, their entire brand is like, we set the rules and we stick to them. Whereas, I would say Amazon has shown a more fluid position in that regard. So I agree that certainly if you're going to bet on which horse is going to, flinch first, it'll definitely be Amazon.
Do you have a blink prediction, Iyaz?
Yeah, I think you guys are right. It's Amazon, because I remember they refused to give Android an actual app for its player. They said, use the Flash player. You could do that. You could only get video on the Kindle Fire. And they're like, we're being stupid. We should get everybody. So they switched it. So I think Amazon
slowly switched it. It was so painful to watch. Hey, but you know what? We cut out all of that. We make one business relationship. It's between me and Brian and you, the viewer or listener.
Well,
like what
hold
we
on.
do, yeah, give us some money. You don't like what we do,
look.
Yeah, still give us some money and complain about it.
Yeah, look, here's the thing, Tom. When somebody donates at patreon.com/cordkillers, they can join one of the 1,889 patrons who help keep our show loud, live, and independent. But understand, 30% of that money will go to us. 70% of that money will also go to us.
Actually,
all right?
A little bit of it does go to
we
the
are
companies and
inflexible.
Patreon.
We are inflexible in this demand, okay?
I mean, we get most of it, though.
Well, look, I'm sorry. I won't back down. 100% of that money is going to end up going to you and me. And of course, yes, we're going to pay for fantastic people in production and all this stuff. That helps keep the show as good as it is. But we just wanted to thank all of you fabulous patrons for making that possible.
Thank you for not delisting us from your personal store in your hearts.
Don't even mention. Why are you giving them ideas? Why would they delist us? Now
Don't
they
delist
know
us.
that's a thing. Somebody out there is
You
thinking
can't
like,
actually do
oh, I could have delisted them.
Except for the one guy who hasn't listed us in his heart yet. You need to give us $1. Just $1. Come on. It's not that much. Patreon.com.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Let's move on to Signals Intelligence or Intelligentsia. I say that because Spain is a member of Europe, and our story is about Europe. Member states of Europe agreed Thursday to a proposal to allow access to subscriptions by services in Europe to European subscribers when they are temporarily traveling outside their home country but still in Europe. We're going to use the word Europe a lot here, okay? So just get used to it. Temporarily is not defined. All they say is a limited amount of time. But basically what this says is, if I'm French and I subscribe to Netflix, for example, it only allows me to watch Netflix while I'm in France because they have certain deals with the providers of a lot of the content that restrict where I can watch it. When I go on vacation into the Swiss Alps, I can't watch my Netflix anymore. So this rule is going to fix that and say online video streaming services, not public broadcasters, just online video streaming services will be not only allowed, but required to allow a temporary easement on that restriction. If this law is approved by the European Parliament, it will go into force in 2017.
I think this is good, ? Because, I mean, on the one hand, it's certainly in spirit with this kind of thing.
Hold on. Beatmaster points out Switzerland isn't in the EU, which I knew. So it won't apply. So when you go to Germany on vacation, okay, take it from there.
Okay. Well, so here's my point. I think both of us are a little bit spoiled in that we don't encounter this problem very often, right? In the United States, because all the 50 states, if we're all the same territory and so
I
on.
remember the last time I roamed in the United States. I was in New Mexico in like 2004 driving, and I was like, I'm roaming?
Oh, on your telephone. You're talking about old telephone
yeah.
roaming, yeah. And so, but I guess roaming is still a significant issue in the EU, so it makes sense that they would use this language. But I know that to me, this felt like a giant, throwback Thursday where all of a sudden we're talking about roaming issues again. I'm going to say that if the part of the problem is the laws are preventing Netflix from being able to do it, then it makes sense that laws would be able to fix that to allow them to provide service, right?
Well, yeah, if I understand it right, it's contracts that are like, I'm a movie company. I'm like, all right, I'll give you the license to have this scene in France, but you can't let anybody outside of France, even if it's the original subscriber.
Okay, so then if that's the case, and this is, again, please write us cordkillers@gmail.com. If that's the case, then I'm upset because if I wrote a contract and I'm like, no, I own the rights to Short Circuit, and Short Circuit will only be played by Netflix in France, and now you tell me that just because somebody goes to Germany, they can suddenly watch it over there? That's not what our agreement said. You don't get to butt in.
And the European Union says, yes, I do. Iyaz, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think the EU gets to do that. That's the whole point of the union, right? Like it's the EU is starting to look a lot more like the United States in theory, right? If you're going to have all these different countries and you have like a shared currency, you have all of this shared culture stuff going on as well. It'd be nice if you left, one country to the other and still have access to the same stuff you had before you left. So this kind of revision is good for people. I know it's a crazy idea. So the people who subscribed and was paying those people to see Short Circuit in France, when they step out of France, they still want to be able to watch it. So let them see Short Circuit and eat cake.
I mean, if your point is everybody should be able to watch everything, that'd be great. But meanwhile, I don't know. I'm not
It's
really
it's an
married to
interstate
this.
commerce law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're basically saying you can't restrict interstate commerce in this particular way,
The
even
other
though we
thing
still
is,
allow it in most other ways.
It's
in
not
Europe.
like the German rights are going to go away. So if they're trying to sell the movie, this is where it's going to be, and this one service is there. It's not like those exclusive rights go away. That would be crazy. Where it's like, okay, if you sell it to France, you got to sell it to the entire EU. That's nuts. It's the same person being able to access the same services they had when they left the country.
Yes, but with really vague terms in terms of like how long and whoever and like, dude, how do they show residency and all that stuff? I don't know. Like, and keep in mind, I am in favor of 100% with the spirit of what this allows for the common individual. I just I don't know. I just bristle a little bit.
Well, what Europe is saying here, if I understand this right, what Europe is saying is you can still restrict your licenses to individual states within Europe, but we don't think it's right for you to restrict a person just because of their physical location if they are normally a citizen of France. So if they just go to Germany for a day, they should still be able to access their Netflix. You can't. There are a lot based, and that's. I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole of laws, but they're saying laws are meant to say what you're not allowed to say in a contract. You can't say in a contract that someone becomes a slave, right? And this is obviously a much different end of the spectrum than that. But they're saying you can't prevent people by contract from watching something just because they leave the country for a couple of days, but they stay within Europe because we're all Europeans now. Once you leave Europe, though, forget it. You still can't watch your Netflix. I think that's the part that angers me the more is like, well, wait a minute. Why does it matter if I go to Germany for a couple of days and I'm still in Europe?
Yes.
Why shouldn't it be a law that says,
all of a sudden,
if you're French and you have a Netflix subscription and you only leave the country for like less than a month, you should still be able to watch it. It shouldn't matter where on earth you are.
Yes. That's exactly it, right? So it's like you're telling me if I vacation, or if I have a business trip in Germany, all of a sudden you're going to protect me and you're going to tell Netflix what they can and can't do. But if I go to Russia, all of a sudden you can't. But also it sounds like from what you said.
Or Switzerland, actually.
What's that?
Or Switzerland, who's not part of the EU.
Or Switzerland. I guess maybe that's what I don't like about it is that it's kind of mushy middle in all of this, where it's like it seems to me if this is because what you said is that it sounds like a non-binding resolution, basically a we all feel thing that they're all saying.
I think this will become when the parliament passes it, I think it becomes a law in all European countries.
Well, Well, at this point,
because the states have already all agreed to it. Europe is. I don't even pretend to understand how it's done, but I know the states have to agree to it, and the parliament has to agree to it, and the states have. So now it's just the parliament. Then it becomes the law for
basically.
Everybody.
They're just setting up a giant green zone where it's just like, hey, we're pretty much doing what the United States does.
Sort of. Except in the United States, we don't have anybody trying to say, well, you left California, you're in Texas, now you can't watch your Netflix anymore. Like, it's just not even an issue.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is they're trying to get to that place.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe this is the first step towards that. All right, we got lots of gear. Sometimes we're a little gear light. I'm not going to lie on this show, but we got lots of gear and gear up today. So let's gear up. Most of it is TiVo gear, but let's start with the Hopper Go, because this one intrigues me. The Hopper Go is now available to customers of Dish's TV service, their satellite TV service, not Sling TV service, for 64 gigabyte device that can take recordings from the Hopper 2, the Hopper with Sling, or the Hopper 3. You can store as much as you can fit on 64 gigs and then take it with you anywhere and watch it on your iOS and Android devices, even if you don't have the internet. That's the part that I love. The device actually creates its own wireless network. It only gets about 4 hours playback on a charge, but I guess you can just keep it plugged in, and it costs $99.
So does the Hopper Go require that you have one of those other devices to have DVR'd the content that you're going to now port over? So essentially it's $99 for an
external hard drive.
Yeah, exactly. But an external hard drive that automatically, just plugs in and grabs your stuff and you're good?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of because we have DRM, they have a product, because otherwise anybody could just make an external hard drive that does this by building in a wireless connection. So I don't love that part of it. But because we have DRM, they still do have to make something like this that says, oh, we'll deal with the Dish DRM for you and get around that. And $99 is a little bit much for an external hard drive that's 64 gigabytes. But with the wireless network on board and being part of the whole ecosystem, I guess it's worth it.
Just being able to access your recordings off a DVR somewhere else without internet, that's a pretty good deal. At $99, I don't think it's too hard to swallow, especially if you think about how expensive cable TV can be or satellite TV can be, hour by hour, month by month.
Well, especially if what you're doing is buying the sense of choice, right? So it's like you go out to go camping and you're only going to have 6 hours to watch TV in your tent while you're in the woods, but you want the ability to access all of your current back catalog of DRM'd DVR stuff. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and yes, when you're camping, you shouldn't be watching TV, except when the sun goes down and the bears are out and you're just in your tent. What else are you going to do? You're going to watch Game of Thrones. Or camping series about camping. to help you camp better.
Or camp remodeling home television.
And Bolt DVR users are now getting the ability to stream or download outside the home to iOS and Android. You could already do this on the 2 non-over-the-air Romeo models, but now you can do it on the Bolt. But I think even more interesting about TiVo, the upcoming CEO, the CEO of Rovi, and Rovi is set to acquire TiVo sometime in Q3, said, there are several box providers out there who have direct to retail. We'll be looking at the possibilities of working with them, having them control the box. And while that would be a partnership and we wouldn't get all the sales as a result, we think that's probably a better way to approach the consumer space. But don't look for us to exit the consumer space. That relationship that TiVo has with consumers has been differentiated for them. So in other words, he's like, we don't really want to make boxes anymore. We're a patent licensing company, but we still want to make money off boxes. So don't overinterpret what I'm saying.
Okay, at this point, if that's really how they feel, why do they even hold on to the TiVo brand? Why don't they sell it off for some decent amount of money and do nothing but set up licenses in this case?
That's like essentially what they're doing.
Well, no. They're licensing the name and they're licensing the technology, but it's like, why even bother to hold on to the brand? Why wouldn't
you though? It's got a recognizable name.
All right, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. There's part of me that finds it very, very difficult to see TiVo having fallen so low.
I know. It is. It's never fun to see TiVo without a life alert lying on the kitchen floor.
Yes, exactly. It's follow Farnsworth, It's like nobody knows he invented television, and the guy, should have been the Farnsworth TV instead RCA,
Iyaz, does this make you sad?
No, I'm actually very excited about this. This could mean that there could be TiVo interfaces on other boxes other than TiVo. They've had a really good interface. They're still relatively ahead of a lot of devices out there. So if it becomes like an app for Roku and you have a hard drive attachment so you can have your DVR that way, freaking do it. I would love that. Make that happen.
I just got excited now. They're up off the kitchen floor. And they're in an old folks patent license situation. No, yeah. If you can do TiVo over the air box that works with Roku anywhere, like even if like downstairs or outside my home, as we just said, the Bolt can now do, that would be amazing. Yeah, or they just license the TiVo software to Roku, and Roku puts out a better TiVo Bolt with the Roku interface and the TiVo interface combined somehow.
The TiVo name is still not totally dead. It's a good name. Not like, remember Replay TV? Try to think of another DVR that you could buy at one point. There used to be competitors. TiVo somehow survived.
Microsoft Ultimate? Yeah, right?
Yes. So use that name. They have a cute little mascot. It's a little TV with the rabbit ears. It looks real goofy. Keep using that. Because Rovi, you don't want to use Rovi's name. Use TiVo.
Okay, but we're all in agreement that this is kind of tacit acknowledgement that it's like, it was a great 20-year run. We know where we belong. We're going to be on the shelf of history, and we're just going to collect money for having had this name and this piece in the.
Well, it's not even that. It's Rovi saying they had a good run. We own their patents now. We're not interested in making stuff. But in the end, does it really matter that much if there's TiVo hardware out there with the TiVo name that does TiVo things, whether it was built by Rovi employees or not?
I mean, it certainly doesn't matter to, the population of guinea pigs in the United States. I mean, it's like matters to what? Like to me personally, or I'm just saying, like, let's it's not going to affect climate change in any way, Tom.
You're saying it's sad that TiVo's been put on a shelf, but there will still be TiVo boxes out there.
Yeah, I guess.
And I assume they'll still have an R&D department. They just won't be making them.
Okay. I was trying to hold back, but it's like I'm deeply, deeply saddened by the failure of TiVo, and I'll just go ahead and say it. And I'm sure somebody works at TiVo and is going to have to hear me say this. So, look, I was one of those people in 1998 who refused to buy a box that was just going to let me watch more TV, and then people explained to me the genius of TiVo, the vision. They're like, no, you're going to watch less TV. It's going to cut out ads. It's going to figure out only the stuff you like. It's going to take in, and I remember the brief point where I was able to tell TiVo the actors that I cared about, and it would find out that John Stossel had an interview on Wayne Brady's talk show in the middle of the day. And in fact, I set up an alert for Brian Brushwood, and one of my favorite moments of my life was when I did an appearance and it showed up on Talk Soup, and it recorded it automatically because it knew that I love this Brian Brushwood guy, whoever that is. And he showed up on Talk Soup and it automatically recorded and it's like, why is it 20 years later and we don't really still have any of that. And yes, I can set up a Google alert or a Myth TV box that does blah, blah, blah for all these things. But it's like the promise of TiVo. I guess this is the moment, Tom. This is the moment that I acknowledge that what I thought I was buying into 20 years ago at TiVo isn't going to happen. TiVo failed.
Actually, this could be the moment where it finally happens, because the reason they couldn't do a lot of that stuff anymore is they couldn't make money off the boxes without getting into partnerships with the cable companies. So what Rovi may do is say, you know what? We're not going to pursue those partnerships. We're not going to be weighed down by having to make boxes. There's plenty of people who make boxes. Let's license stuff to them, and we can set it free, and it can do a lot more. Maybe you'll actually get those things back because they don't have to deal with the hardware partnerships anymore.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
All right.
I'm not very optimistic. It's like, I mean, we've had our heart broken by TiVo a few times before. I'm not expecting anything different this time.
Well, what I am expecting to happen is for everyone to go vote for their favorite podcast in the podcast awards, Brian.
Oh, heck yes. But what if the kind of person who likes this show, who likes Cordkillers, also tends to like another bunch of shows? And what if a bunch of people figured out a way to make it super easy for everybody to vote as a block by going to hat.t2t2.eu? That's hat.t2t2.eu. Then you could upload you just drag a bookmarklet up to your bookmark bar, and then all of a sudden you go to podcastawards.com, and it spells out, like, just click and it'll highlight it and makes it super easy to vote for all your stuff.
So you're hatting the system.
That's right.
Making sure there are enough hats. Hat.t2t2.eu. Go cast your votes. Be democratic. It is time now for the front lines.
That was a PSA.
Frontlines!
Frontlines brought to you by hatting the system.
The Financial Times reported a week from Thursday. The sources told it. Apple SVP Eddie Q met with Time Warner's head of corporate strategy, Olaf Olafsson, the HBO TBS owning Time Warner, late last year to discuss an acquisition. It didn't pass beyond preliminaries, but unnamed bankers told FT that Apple is now interested in acquiring a streaming service like Netflix. By the way, for the record, Time Warner Cable, the most hated brand in America, according to a headline.
Not talking about Time Warner Cable right now.
Yeah, no. Shoot, that's right. You even specified it, and I read the wrong one. Damn. Sorry. Forget it. Forget I said that.
Also, Time Warner Cable won't exist as a name for much longer, so this confusion will go away once Charter just renames all the Time Warner Cable outlets.
Which, by the way, how much more beloved is Charter than Time Warner Cable?
A little bit.
5%? 10%?
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I guess the cable companies all improved slightly, though. Even though they're still hated, they're hated less than they used to.
Wouldn't know. I'm the 1%.
What do you guys think of this? This is a crazy rumor. I don't think Apple's going to buy Netflix, even though they could several times over with their cash on hand. I just don't think Netflix would allow them to sell. Apple would have to pay a huge premium to force them to sell. But I could have seen them buy Time Warner HBO. They seem to be buddies.
I mean, it seems like Apple's smartest play, absent Steve Jobs. Like, if Steve Jobs were around, I don't think they would ever consider diversifying like this. But absent that, it does feel like over the last few years that Apple has lacked a clarity of vision and direction. And maybe the right thing to do is take that massive pile of cash and figure out how to diversify and buy a bunch of utilities that will make the money forever and ever and ever.
Iyaz?
I'm just thinking how Apple usually destroys whatever it touches, so I don't want them touching Netflix at all. Remember the Beats stuff? Like, they basically take things and then they consume it entirely, and then the service you liked is totally terrible. Apple Music, anybody? It's a pile of garbage. So
some people like it.
So I don't know. Well, these people are very patient, whoever they are. But if they're going to go take a little service, maybe they could take Crackle off of Sony's hands or something, so they can have a little bit of a streaming
here's
library.
a nutty idea. Why don't you buy a thing, let it make money for you, and not change a goddamn thing about it? Is that too crazy for you guys to consider? Why not buy Netflix, call it Netflix, let Netflix do Netflix stuff, and don't do a damn thing? How about that?
Yeah, but that's not the way Apple does. Apple wants everything to be Apple. They're the ones, when you were just saying, like, why even use the TiVo name anymore? That's Apple's way of thinking of everything. Like, no, we only use the name Apple for anything. I don't think they buy Netflix, though. I think it's worth too much. What they want is not just a streaming service, but the expertise to deliver a streaming service because Apple is not very good at delivering things over a network.
I think this is how empires crumble. I mean, we watched this in the late 90s and early 2000s. Microsoft would buy a bunch of things. All of a sudden, Microsoft, the same people who brought the OS that you hate, want to make sure that they put their name all over the game console that you're supposed to love in their living room. And it's like, why are you climbing uphill? It's like the word Xbox is great if you would just wipe out that Microsoft crap from it. And for some reason, Apple seems to have the same disease. I don't know.
Although I think Apple has a much, much more positive perception in the marketplace than Microsoft did at the time of the Xbox.
Now,
Microsoft benefited by having their name next to Xbox because people are like, oh, that's Microsoft? Well, I guess they can't be as bad as I thought because they have Xbox. Apple right now, they usually are the better thing. I'm not saying they're better quality-wise, but just people generally think positively about Apple.
yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
Could be a new Apple, though. I mean, they didn't destroy Beats, the actual the hardware maker. So that's this strange thing that exists, this anomaly.
Wait, maybe you mean Mog? You're talking about Mog?
Not Mog.
Oh, right, because Beats bought Mog. I forgot all about that. Yeah. If I see Apple buy somebody, they're going to buy it for the tech, and Netflix, as great as it is tech-wise, is too expensive for that. Amazon has put up 2 one-hour drama pilots along with 6 kids series. The Interestings is the name of one of them, based on Meg Wolitzer's 2013 novel about kids bonding at summer camp. Another one is called The Last Tycoon, written and directed by Billy Ray, who also wrote Captain Phillips and the Hunger Games adaptation. It stars Kelsey Grammer as an aging studio head back in the 1930s, battling his son for control of the business during the rise of fascism. And a lot of the kids' stuff we'll skip. You can go take a look at them online. One of them, though, is a remake of Sid and Marty Krofft's Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, and they will all be available for you to peruse on June 17th.
Tell you what, man, if you have kids, it is awesome to see a 3-year-old look you in the eye and say, like, Dad, I want you to load up Hulu. I'm like, why Hulu, not Netflix? You're like, well, because I want to watch The Amazing World of Gumball, and that's only on Hulu. Like kids are brand aware so early, and it's so smart for them to be focusing on kid stuff for this.
Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. I'm actually more excited about that than anything.
Yeah, I don't know that one. Hey man, does El Chapo listen to Cordkillers? Well, his lawyer Andres Garandos said that he will sue Netflix and Univision if they air a series on El Chapo's life without paying him. He's basically demanding they pay him to use the man's name and nickname. He could sweeten the deal by providing more info to make it a better series. So this was our question last week, Iyaz, and you have a better legal understanding than we do. Why do people pay for, quote unquote, pay for the rights to certain stories in order to put them on, made for TV movies and so on? Is it a convenience thing? Is it an access thing? Is it a legal entitlement thing? And does El Chapo have a case?
These are great questions. I studied entertainment law for like a semester, which was about 10 years ago. So I'm going to have to say, I don't remember.
Fair enough. Very honest.
Yeah, I mean, because, for instance, The Social Network did not have Mark Zuckerberg's approval. He didn't get paid for it. Lots of stuff is made about Queen Elizabeth that definitely doesn't have her approval. There's loads of biopics made without people's approval, unauthorized biographies, living and dead, but the living ones are the ones we're concerned with.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that both The Social Network and all the Queen Elizabeth biopics probably don't portray either of the main characters in quite the negative light that this El Chapo.
We don't know. We don't know if it's going to be negative or not. And El Chapo's not saying whether he cares whether it's negative or not. He just wants the cash.
Yeah.
He says, you can't tell any story that uses my name or my nickname without paying me.
Maybe it's not a legal threat he's making. Maybe this is just a threat he's making.
I'm El Chapo. Do you not want to negotiate with me? But you're right. Like, even people who don't have the backing of threats that maybe El Chapo might still get paid for their stories. So is it just the cooperation and the lack? I mean, I think it insures you against some liability because someone could come at you and say, hey, you portrayed me in a way that's not true and is defamatory, etc.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Still waiting for those lawyers to write us in. Marvel and FX are going to produce a full season of the TV show Legion set in the X-Men universe, which will follow whom we assume is the son of Professor X. A pilot was done by Noah Hawley. He's the one who adapted Fargo for TV for FX. Dan Stevens, the guy who played Matthew Crawley on Downton Abbey, will play David Haller, who is a psychiatric patient who slowly realizes the voices in his head are real, expected to air in 2017.
So, where are we at in the balkanization of Marvel properties? Now that we've kind of seen the introduction of Spider-Man into the Avengers universe, let's just say for sake of discussion, Spider-Man's now folded into that universe. We've seen Deadpool and X-Men in that side. Fantastic Four is licensed by which property?
Fox. It's still Fox.
Fox, which is the same as
X-Men.
Yeah, okay, all right, well... So theoretically, really we have two parallel universes, and that's it, right? That's all the licenses there are?
Well, no, there's still Fantastic Four and Spider-Man is Sony, right? So we have three.
Well, Spider-Man is
We have
Sony,
Fox,
but
Sony,
I'm assuming
Disney.
Spider-Man is folded in, at this point, playing nice and folded into
So is there no other Sony people besides Spider-Man?
When it came to Sony, they had Spider-Man and anybody related. So that'd be like Venom and the villains. So they have all of that.
So let's say for sake of discussion, all of that folds into Avengers MCU. I guess that's it. We have two weirdly separated at birth Marvel universes now.
Well,
right?
but then we also got a few X-Men and Deadpool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. I already mentioned all that. I'm sure. I think you were distracted. But yeah. No. X-Men and Deadpool. And
wasn't Deadpool a Disney movie?
No. Deadpool was Fox. So the mutant world and the word mutant, you will never hear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Correct.
You're only going to hear that in the Fox universe, which they're trying to build something else with the Fantastic Four, and they've botched that twice.
Okay.
So
So I've woken back up and I've caught up. What are you trying to say, Brian?
I'm trying to ask how many, are we down to two?
Yeah, so we've got two.
Has pretty much everything collapsed into two parallel Marvel universes that never the twain will meet. Both of them have successful...
Not necessarily never.
Well, yeah, that's fair enough. But so far, their stories and, intellectual property speaking are completely independent of each other.
Well,
there's one asterisk.
No, because they're all owned by Marvel. But yeah, Fox is... So I'm not sure where you're going with this. I thought the headline here is freaking Noah Hawley's going to do an X-Men TV show on FX.
Yes, and that's great. But that just instantly makes me wonder, in which universe does it tie in with blank blank, which instantly in my mind says, hey, what are the borders in this stuff? And that's what I was asking you guys.
Gotcha. You're just always two steps ahead. That's
I'm two steps sideways.
It's parallel. It's okay. Just talking about parallel universes.
But hey, man, Google's going to add cast functionality to all of its Google Fiber TV boxes. The functionality will come in a software update, although some Chromecast enables apps including Spotify, HBO, and HBO Now and Hulu won't work at launch. But still, that's amazing. It's my favorite thing about technology, man. You just flip a switch and all of a sudden everything gets better.
Yeah, I was more excited before I found out how many apps don't work. I'm like, why don't they work? If you're just supposed to, but yeah, that's kind of cool. And Netflix announced its first Indian original series will be called Sacred Games, based on the 2006 best-selling novel from Vikram Chandra about India's criminal underworld. It will be shot in India and produced in collaboration with Phantom Films.
Dude, fantastic.
Yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit on DTNS today. We are at the point where so many Netflix originals are out, you cannot keep up with them, and they are coming out now in multiple countries all around the world.
Well, and we even had an email complaining about this, and that'll be interesting for us to talk about when we get.
Have we ever seen any worldwide enterprise like this where everybody could watch the same shows, but there are also regionally produced shows?
I mean, yes and no. You could say that we have, in that there have been syndication of companies that have made available stuff that was homegrown all over the place. Because really, I mean, yes, they're all released under the Netflix banner, but Netflix is not sitting in a boardroom saying, we want this to be the one show that everybody loves across the world. Instead, what they're doing is they're finding out what people are already interested in doing regionally, and saying, yeah, we'll back that. Or, oh, that's already made.
But then everyone in the world can watch it at the same time.
Yes.
I think that's what's interesting.
Wait, is that the case for every Netflix original that it releases worldwide all at the same time?
Some of the
Pretty
older
much.
ones weren't. House of Cards, obviously, they were like, well, we're going to release it on Blu-ray in Australia, so we don't have the rights to show it there quite yet or whatever. But going forward, every one of these originals is
And that
worldwide
is.
rights.
No. I stand corrected. That is a tremendous difference. That is fantastic. Yeah.
So it's like having local television, right? Like national television, but with worldwide distribution. Which, I mean, you could say BBC World Service, but the things on BBC World Service are not the same as the things on BBC One in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, no, if your thesis is that's extraordinary, I agree. It is very, very extraordinary.
All right, let's move on to what's under surveillance, because you got to watch stuff on all these streaming services boxes. One of the things you can watch is RiffTrax. They are starting to riff Game of Thrones and added season 1, episode 1, Brian.
Yeah, dude, I'm not going to lie. I totally kind of pushed for this to make it to the list, mainly because it was such an extraordinary experience to come home and catch you and Eileen in the middle of watching season 1, episode 1, and how different it felt. And it occurred to me, like, I think most people should go back and watch the first episode, but if you're looking for an excuse, this is a pretty good excuse to have some of our best riffers in history making fun of it while you watch it.
For our next story, I'm going to put on a hat so that I can take off my hat in memory of Deadbeat, which will not be renewed for a 4th season on Hulu.
I mean, look, at three seasons is a good run, right?
Not bad.
We should be happy for them.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I'm happy for the 3 seasons. Obviously, they would have liked a 4th. They will not get one on Hulu. Hey, maybe Netflix will pick them up.
Oh my God, would that be amazing? The spiritual successor to Deadbeat picked up by Netflix. You better believe that Hulu contract had all kinds of provisions, like you don't ever do anything with ghosts for any other company.
No, usually what happens is the production company's like, if you don't want to keep us going, we have the right to go take this somewhere else.
Oh my God, what a coup that would be. Netflix saving a Hulu original would be money in the bank. That's great.
Because, and we talked about this earlier too, Hulu needs to have viewers because they sell ads. I know they have the ad-free tier, but they still make the majority of their viewers watch ads. So if you don't get enough people watching it, okay, guys, we may not be able to afford a 4th season. Netflix doesn't care. Netflix looks at it and goes, Western comedy? Yeah, we have a big niche there that'll keep a bunch of people happy and subscribing. We'll do it. I mean, I'm not saying it will happen. You look skeptical, though.
Well, yeah, I don't think Netflix is going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. I think that these actors that are on the show, Tyler Labine, I've seen him in lots of different movies and television shows. So I think they're probably going to move on, whether this show continues or not. I don't see why Netflix would bother with this.
Amazon's getting in the original series effort as well. Amazon Japan announced a dozen original series coming to the service there. Among the shows are spin-offs of popular superhero series Kamen Rider and Ultraman, an animated teenage rom-com called Baby Steps involving tennis, and an animated sci-fi series called Businessmen vs. Aliens.
All of these sound amazing. I gotta feel like the Ultraman thing. I'm really curious. Slight spoiler talk. I don't know if I'm going to try to talk in code, but if you read Ready Player One, it seems like it'd be good to, have a piece of action in the Ultraman franchise.
And Ken from Chicago points out Netflix has Longmire, modern day Western, but it's not funny. It's not funny. Longmire's not funny. Yeah, man, I wonder if Amazon Japan originals will be available worldwide on Amazon Prime. I would assume they would be.
I just heard on award-winning program Cordkillers that might be a possibility.
Yeah, at least that's what Netflix does. I don't know that Amazon does. Genji Kohan is developing 10 episodes of a new show for Netflix called Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, inspired by the 1980s TV show of the same name. Glow was co-created by Liz Flahive, who worked on Homeland, and Carly Mensch, who worked with Kenji on Orange is the New Black.
I think this could be so good. So good. Fascinating, fertile territory, so to speak. I apologize. I remember watching Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling on, Phil Donahue back in the day. You'd see crossovers with the WWF at the time. I think there's amazing stories to be told, and I think it plays to all of, at least certainly, if not Jinji Kohan's actual strengths, certainly the strengths of her brand, is telling fascinating, detailed, and interesting stories of fascinating women.
Orange is the New Black returns June 17th. BoJack Horseman returns July 22nd. And the movie, The Little Prince, which did play in theaters in some parts of the world, but not here in the United States, will debut on Netflix on August 5th. For more dates, you got to go follow Iyaz, right, Iyaz?
Yeah, you can go to cnet.com/netpicks, where we have pretty much everything going on Netflix, Amazon. I'm a little bit behind, so we usually have Hulu. Sometimes we have Crackle. We have a whole bunch of different services. So if you're bored and you're like, what am I going to watch? You could first watch Cordkillers, and then you can go to cnet.com/netpicks and find out what else is out there.
What have you been watching lately yourself?
Just before I came on to this show, I was watching the second episode of Preacher, which I enjoyed. I read the books. I read like the entire series and all the spinoffs. So it's really interesting to watch it be on television. And it's weird because Tulip sounds exactly like she did in my head when I read this book, like in the late 90s. So it's very, very strange. Also, I watched the X-Men movie, which did not like.
No, it's getting mixed reviews, so I'm not surprised. I haven't seen it yet, Brian. I guess you haven't either.
No. However, I did watch more of. In fact, you actually caught me in the middle of trying to figure out if I'm on episode 10 or 11 of Daredevil. I watched 3 or 4 more episodes of that. Would love to talk about it in spoiler in time. Watched 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. Watched 2 episodes of Justified, and I did watch the Preacher pilot, which I would love it, Iyaz, if you could. I think of the 3 of us, you're the only one who's read the original comic. I would love to get your take in spoiler in time about the, thematic differences and stuff on there. Not now, though.
Might be possible.
Okay, all right.
Also, I've been watching Wayward Pines as it returns. It's not as strong as the first season, but it's still interesting. And Silicon Valley, I think, is great. I'm having a ball watching that. Bryce, what are you on the lookout for?
Hey, we have an update for one of our previous picks. Casual, the Hulu dramedy, is coming back for its second season on June 7th. And I think it looks, just from the little bit of wording that I saw, that it'll be a week-by-week thing, unlike Deadbeat, which all dropped in one. But our pick for this week is from Dave. He writes, I would like to point out a great pick for On the Lookout. It's a show called Banshee, created as a Cinemax original. The first season is available on Amazon Prime. It's a crime drama about an ex-con who masquerades as a town sheriff looking for his former lover. There's an intense relationship between an Amish crime lord, the local Indian tribe, and this faux sheriff. It does have a fair amount of sex and violence, so it's not for the faint of heart or all ages family. It was a great series that I quickly binged through. The only problem is the rest of the seasons are not on Prime, and I had to purchase the additional season. So like Dave mentioned, Season 1 is on Amazon Prime Instant with a subscription. Seasons 1 through 3 are on the Amazon Prime Store, iTunes, Vudu, and the UK service Now TV, and I think that's a streaming option. The 4th and final season just wrapped on Cinemax and will probably be available on the stores in the coming months. I watched the first episode today, and it was really good. There was a lot of action, a lot of suspense, and the main character he's an interesting sort of con man. You normally think of them as like very suave and like charming, where this guy is kind of rough and like he'll fight. He's a good fighter, but his charm is in his fists. That's how I would describe it.
How many times have I never heard anyone say that about me?
So that's Banshee.
Got something we should be on the lookout for? Email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Let's get some dispatches from the front. David from Riverside, California writes, hello, Brian and Tom. I thought you should know. I have a Vudu account. And I received an email from them stating that they now accept Walmart gift cards. I thought that was interesting and wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, man. On the one hand, that's great. Also, I think it's kind of old news that there's a lot of cross promotion with gift cards, and there's even underground trading markets where you.
Yeah, and Walmart owns Vudu, so why wouldn't they?
Right, exactly. But no, that's super good news. Zeke writes in saying, "Hey guys, I think I'm a week behind on the the podcast, you may have already addressed this. The discussion you had on the podcast seemed awkwardly cut short, and you seem to have a very different opinion than what most of the Trek fandom has come to. Did you pick up on that? We're about to talk about Trek fandom. You think this is going to go well?
Yeah, no, there's no controversy there. Everybody agrees.
Great. Axanar was first presented as a Kickstarter to make a studio-quality Star Trek fan film, but after funding ended, it became clear that Kickstarter just wasn't to cover costs. Alec Peters was starting a production company called Axanar Productions that had aims at becoming a commercial business. It was this intent to profit that rubbed the Trek community wrong. Eventually, someone at Paramount heard that there was a fan film that was trying to profit from the Star Trek IP. Commonly, this is called IP theft. The fans have had a long understanding with CBS Paramount that fan works are fine so long as you don't try to profit, which, by the way, I don't even know what that means. I mean, try to profit. It's like, as long as I show you a piece of paper that says we made $0, that makes it okay. As soon as you want to make your living off Star Trek, you have to get CBS Paramount blessing and deals are made. Axanar was trying to get out of licensed IP, basically, is what he says. And now I have lost the rest of the letter. Tom, you had thoughts on this.
No, actually, I have the opposite of thoughts on this. There are people who feel like our friend here, Zeke, that all of the Axanar people were playing fast and loose with the rules and ruined it for everybody now because they're trying to force these guidelines that they agreed to as CBS and Paramount on everybody. Other folks believe that Axanar just kind of got too successful for their own good, and that, hey, Star Wars always requires that you not make money off your fan films too. So it's just that Star Trek is finally catching up with the times. I think there's good and bad arguments on both sides, but it does show that intellectual property definitely causes people to get angry at each other.
Yeah, I will say this much. One of the themes was like, well, this wasn't a problem until Axanar. No, it was, I would say that it seems to me like this question of what side they're going to be on, this was always a problem. It just became apparent once you had somebody as successful as Axanar. And yeah, whether or not they plan to make a commercial venture or whether or not they tried to trade on their name later, I mean, that's, I don't know. It's whatever. Not my monkeys, not my circus.
Yeah, Iyaz, do you have any position on the whole Axanar thing?
Other than saying what you just did, intellectual property makes people angry. It really does.
Yeah, and the reason our conversation was cut short is that it doesn't really bear too much on a cord cutter's life, except that maybe it might slow down the production of new fan content. And that's important there.
Well, and that's kind of the weird double-edged sword is, let's not pretend like CBS Paramount hasn't derived a massive amount of tangible financial benefit as a result of the outpouring of free bonus content created in their world, and both for Star Trek and for Star Wars, it's been the same thing. The 501st gets written into the Star Wars canon at some point. That is all a free effort made by fans of the community, and now all of a sudden it's commercial property that belongs in a universe run by Disney. And so, it's I don't know, it's a two-way street. It's difficult.
We definitely need reform of copyright law, but it's not because of Axanar or not because of Axanar.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. Is the only the thing that drove me a little nuts is the assertion that it's because of Axanar that it's finally a problem. And then again, it's like, hey man, you always had intellectual property cancer. Now you just have it diagnosed and you got to get it fixed.
We're sorry that it infected your favorite property.
Correct.
Dave in Waco said, hey guys, my family's been cord free for almost 10 years. We're now about TV free for 4 years. I'm one of those people who finds most ads to be intolerable. In fact, on the few occasions I go to the movies, I make a note of whatever ads might be shown so that I'll never buy them. Why should I buy an overpriced ticket to sit with a bunch of noisy neighbors and get commercials shoved down my throat? If the theater can't make enough from ticket sales, raise the price. Another thought for you is one that I hear you skirt every once in a while. Sure, you can save a lot of money by cutting the cord. I know we have. However, once you get away from most of the noise in the very low signal to noise ratio, you really start to realize just how overpriced almost everything is. I personally will never pay more than $5 for an album again and would never pay more than $10 for a season of a TV show. They're just not worth that much to me anymore. And thanks to you and Spoiler in Time, I've had several great discussions with people about Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones, The Shield, and a good many movies that I have never seen, but have seen in my mind through your discussions.
Tom, I think conflicted doesn't even begin to express how I feel about this email, because on the one hand, I am unbelievably flattered that you and I have been able to tell stories and our perceptions of them and created a theater of the mind. Like I derived immense joy and pride from knowing that we've let Dave in Waco feel like he's seen these properties. On the other hand, I think some albums are worth more than $5. I think some seasons of television shows are worth 10.
He said to him.
10. Yes, no. It is. I also think that absent, I think advertisements subsidize some great art. I think there's some great art that had to have commercial breaks. I think The Shield would not have existed were it not for advertisements. And so, whether or not you pay, however much money, I don't know. Listen to the Freakonomics podcast. It's crazy.
And we got one more from Amar here who says, I think providers like Netflix and Amazon are losing their vision. Since day one, Netflix was supposed to be a way to get shows and movies, and now it's like they're trying to be a network. Now, mind you, making a few original shows is fine, but having 40 plus Netflix originals, not all of which are actually made by Netflix, is a bit much. Even worse, all their drama content is TVMA. So, of course, my mom will not let me watch it. I wanted to watch ABC's Agent Carter, but if that gets turned into a Netflix original, there's no way I'm going to watch it. Of course, there's nothing quite wrong with making shows most people don't like, because some people might, and it's a little something for everybody. But I'm also afraid that the overall qualities of the shows made by Netflix may go down because they're trying to do too many shows. What do you guys think?
I'm going to say I think his diagnosis is absolutely correct, but his prescription is 100% wrong. His diagnosis is Netflix was popularized based on its ability to get you TV shows and movies that exist. His prescription is stick to that. I think what they're doing is 100% brilliant and 100% spot on, and has been proven by HBO already. What about you, Iyaz?
I think that Netflix just dealt with the reality of people saying that we're not going to give you our movies unless we charge a lot more money. We're not going to give you our TV shows unless we charge you a lot more money. And they just figured out a way around it. They go, why don't we just make our own stuff? We'll license it to us. We like us. So that makes a lot of sense why they bothered to do the original. So yeah, they sort of look like a network, but they don't exactly do programming, right? There's no schedule. You watch whatever you want. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are not TVMA that you can watch on Netflix. So maybe you just need a filter.
Yeah. And I think that it's easy to say, well, they're going to get stretched too thin and the quality will go down, because you think of it as one person running around making all the shows. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, they could get stretched too far in making deals because there's only a limited number of people who can sit in the room and say, okay, you're approved. But there are thousands of production companies just here in Los Angeles. And so there are plenty of people who can make quality television for them. They just need to have the money to pay them and the time to go listen to the pitches and pick good ones.
Agreed.
Well, that is it for this episode of Cordkillers. Iyaz Akhtar. Now, we've mentioned cnet.com/netpicks, but you also mentioned there's some other individual products you've got going on.
Yeah, so right after I'm done with this show, I'm going to do an entertainment review podcast called Killing Time. It's at killingtime.tv. We've got a Patreon at patreon.com/Iyaz. And what's happened so far is that we hit a goal. So I will be bringing back an old show called Dinosaurs Before They Were Fuels, which is a dinosaur news podcast. I know that sounds strange, but there's new discoveries all the time about dinosaurs and that time period. I always wanted to watch that show like years ago when I started it. Didn't exist, so I did it. But I'm bringing it back as an audio show. It's going to come out this month. So if you guys support us, I can make a better video version of it. But that's a whole other thing. So that's patreon.com/Iyaz.
Right.
I'm so glad you're bringing the dinosaur show back. That's awesome.
It's coming back. It's I can't believe we hit the $100 goal, because that's kind of nuts. There's only like 30 people backing us. So thank you guys so much right now for helping me put those shows together.
Fantastic. Patreon.com/Iyaz. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will cut your cords later.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
Unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
Let's go.
it's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.